Previously on this show. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dan Casey, and welcome to Nerdist News Talks Back. It's our weekly down and dirty, over-the-top cage match of a talk show about all things pop culture, and thank you so much for joining us. We have a jam-packed show today. First, we're going to be breaking down all sorts of stuff. We're going to be talking about the best villains of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and would you be willing to eat a ramen pizza? I mean, some of you put pineapple on it, so why not? Also, Disney is finally overhauling Splash Mountain, but is it too little, too late? Also, which 27-year-old film took #1 at the box office recently? The answer may surprise you. But wait, there's more, because in honor of yesterday being Mel Brooks' birthday, we thought we'd test our panel's knowledge on the comedy legend and his movies. All of this and more on today's Nerdist News Talks Back. Okay, time to breathe. We have a lot to discuss today, and I can't do it by myself. We've put together an all-star panel this week, so joining us, we have the host. He's one of the hosts of the First Cut YouTube channel and the Meaning of podcast, Robert Butler III. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor.
Yeah, we're stoked, man. We're going to get into it in just a minute. And next up, we have a very talented writer and comedian who's also the head writer for the Troubled Waters podcast, and she's a massive Doctor Who fan. If you don't believe us, well, she interviewed 3 of the Doctors right here on Nerdist YouTube channel. It's Riley Silverman.
Hello, thanks to you. I'm excited to be back. I'm excited the show is back.
Yes, and we are excited to have you back as well. And last but not least, speaking of talented writers, she's the host of the Something Scary podcast and an interviewer extraordinaire, especially here at Nerdist. It's Markia McCarty.
Hey, Dan. Hey, everybody. I'm excited for Nerd Talks. Let's do this.
Yes, let's get into it. Let's get into the biggest stories of the week. So it was revealed on Saturday that the long-running comedy, The Simpsons, would finally, after 30 years, stop using white actors to play non-white characters. And this is coming on the heels of Hank Azaria stepping away from playing Apu earlier this year, especially following the attention brought to it by Hari Kondabolu's documentary about that. But after 3 decades, is this too little too late, or is it about damn time? What do you guys think?
Well, I personally think it's great. I mean, I saw the documentary, The Problem with Apu, and that was my first time really getting any awareness of the problem that was happening. I just assumed that Apu was voiced by an Indian actor. I didn't know it was Frank Azaria. So it's really good to see that kind of progress happening. I know there's a few other shows that started changing direction. I know, there's announcements about Rick and Morty, how they have Dr. Wu being played by like Susan Sarandon. And then there was, BoJack Horseman that had some, that didn't have an Asian actress playing their Asian character. So there's a lot of animation that does it. It is a real problem, but I'm glad that more companies are starting to become more culturally woke to understanding the problems with it. And I hope that, I know there's a lot of narratives online that are like, oh, but what about the voice actors? They're putting them out of work. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people of color who can easily fill those same roles and probably add some guidance into helping those roles not be offensive or stereotypical. So overall, I think it's a great decision overall.
Exactly. And to that argument that people are saying, but what about these voice actors? You're talking about people like Hank Azaria, Harry Shearer, people that have made hundreds of thousands, like millions of dollars on this show for 3 decades. And they also play multiple characters on this show. Also, you see the actor who plays Cleveland on Family Guy stepping down, other things with Central Park, I believe. Kristen Shaw.
Kristen Bell. Kristen Bell. Yeah.
Yeah. Kristen Bell.
Yeah, she played a voice. Oh, is it Kristen Shaw? No, I think it was Kristen Bell as a character on Central Park.
There's so many Kristens in the Bob's Burger universe. It's hard to keep track.
Well, and as Robert just mentioned too, like Alison Brie was the voice on BoJack Horseman. Alison Brie's doing fine. Like she's got Glow also on Netflix. Like we're not talking about like the Frank Wellers of the like even Frank Weller has lots of money, but we're not talking about struggling voiceover artists here. We're talking about like celebrities that are being brought in to play these characters.
Yeah, and then there's the whole thing of, false representation with it. If you don't have, like for Apu, if you don't have an Indian American or Indian person writing that character, how do you know if you didn't get it right, if your nuance is off? And then along with that, you have a white voice actor doing Apu, and it's just those are multiple layers of not awesomeness. Let's say it's kind of like what Short Circuit 2. I'm sorry, Short Circuit. Well, I think he was also in the second one.
He's the star of the second one.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
With Fisher Stevens, it's like he plays an Indian American in that he is not Indian at all. I I only learned that like maybe a couple of years ago, and I was just like, no, that's one of those false facts things. That can't be real. And
Yeah.
so when you think about things like this with this representation in cartoon, why or in animation, why are you okay with putting that on the screen for people to see, but you're not okay with putting those people behind the mic and behind the camera to get that representation there? And that's what you really have to think about in instances like that. It makes a difference.
Exactly. I think you really hit the nail on the head there, Markia, because like you're saying, you don't want to just pay lip service to a commitment to inclusivity and equality. If you're just recasting a voice actor, you're also not necessarily speaking to their lived experience. So I think you made a great point there.
Yeah, I think that goes to your is it too little too late comment. I think that like, yeah, if you just said, okay, we're done, and that's all you do, then yeah, it's too little. But I feel like, and obviously it's way too late for all of this stuff. But I think that like I said, you have to keep building from what's already been happening.
And I will say one positive change that I hope that comes out of this is Wendell Pierce, the great Wendell Pierce, who you may know as Bunk on The Wire, has formally lobbied to take over the voice role of Cleveland on Family Guy, which I am 100% for. More Wendell Pierce in everything, always and forever, please and thank you. But let's move on to our next topic, shall we? So speaking of animated characters, Disneyland is full of them, likes to market itself as the happiest place on earth. However, there is one unfortunate ride at Disneyland that, in spite of its massive popularity, remains extremely problematic. We're talking, of course, about Splash Mountain, which is based on the extremely racist 1946 Disney film Song of the South. And over the past few months, Splash Mountain has come under even more scrutiny than usual on social media. And recently, Disney announced they've been quietly working for the past few years on retheming the ride around the Princess and the Frog instead. So, what do you make of this news? Why do you think it's taken so long for a change like this to be enacted? And specifically, what do you think of them using the Princess and the Frog as its replacement? Markia, let's start with you.
This is just keeping with the category that we had before. This is about damn time. This goes underneath that because something that I've noticed with people online saying, well, they'll be like, oh, what my syrup, what my pancake mix, what Disney, what's next? And it's like, well, people have been saying that this has been a problem for a while. Just something's being done now. And with Princess and the Frog replacing Splash Mountain, I'm all for it because it's still a really great water ride. But and big but here, because quarantine hits different, I need for there to be something extra to get me to go to a crowded theme park with other people. Having same old Splash Mountain is not going to do it. It's just not going to do it. Not in 2020, not in 2021, not in 2022, whenever we're getting out again. What will is having this beautiful, fantastical adventure of what happens after the final kiss with, Princess and the Frog. Like, I want to go on that journey. Take me there, retool that, and let's see some pastels and some greens. And then after that, I get to go to New Orleans, like right next door, and have some of the food that I'm craving after I just got off of whatever it's called, Tiana Splash Mountain. So, yeah, bring it.
And we also have Smarcy in the chat saying, bring on the change, I say. Princess and the Frog needs some love. I mean, seriously, it's also a good point. Like, even from a business perspective, let alone a like moral imperative or just being a humanist company, like Disney is all about marketing its princesses to then sell merchandise with fan favorite characters. You already have Princess Tiana walking around the park, like making children's days even better. Why not give her her own ride? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, I think this is perfect timing. I think especially with the Black Lives Matter movement that's happening right now. I think with everything that the country is experiencing and undergoing, it's the perfect opportunity to kind of revisit and reshape the image that the Disney Corporation's kind of always been bringing off. And I'm excited to see a Princess and the Frog ride. I think it's actually one of the more historic landmark Disney movies for the simple fact that it's the last Disney princess to ever be 2D animation. So then they could play into that. I think that it's an important piece of history that just has kind of gotten overlooked because of, the way Disney has kind of shifted directions over the past few years. But now that, they already had a hard time. I felt like they've always had a hard time promoting like Pocahontas because it's such a it's kind of a down the middle kind of character in terms of like representation. It is great for Native American representation, but it's also a really terrible and tragic real life story. So I'm glad they're finally using this opportunity to capitalize off of some real life, real life issues and some real life race and representation that wasn't represented before.
Exactly, because they've also over the years still been making money off of Song of the South, even though they're not putting it on Disney Plus. It's been unavailable widely for years as a film, but through this attraction, through its music, they're still generating revenue. This attraction opened way back in 1989. So when you see companies like Warner Brothers, for example, putting warnings in front of old Looney Tunes cartoons to indicate that it represents outdated notions of race, sexuality, gender, etc., and you don't see Disney doing something similar, do you think that's a misstep on their part? Is that something they should do? Should a movie like Song of the South be available with caveats, or do you think it's just something they should just kind of, are they right to try and just sweep this under the rug? Riley, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think that the thing with Song of the South is that it has always had critics since the day it came out. And a lot of those critics were silenced from the day it was. Like, there's a lot of stories behind it about Walt trying to say it was communists conspiring against him instead of actually listening to Black voices at the time saying what was wrong with it. So I think that there's more to Song of the South than just the racial stereotypes. Like, I think even the history of the way the movie has been promoted and released and stuff like that. I don't know if at any point, like, I don't feel good about the idea of Disney making money off of it now, because like it was, even when it was being made, it was being said like, don't make this movie. So it's not an example like the Warner Brothers ones where it was just like everyone was making these cartoons and that's what we were doing back then, even though it was objectively wrong then as it is now. I think Song of the South has like a whole other like beast to it, and I think that's why it should just be like, I would love to see a Black filmmaker and a Black voice take the actual like Brer Rabbit stories like and make a new completely non-Song of the South, not Joel Chandler Harris. Because that's the thing, Joel Chandler Harris, who wrote the books that like the newspaper stories that this movie was based off of, also stole his stories from Black voices. So I think that Song of the South should just be taken away completely, and no white people should make any money off of it whatsoever. And then these actual like African like folk tales should be given to Black voices to tell those stories.
Yeah, you know how they have the Disney vault? They need the Disney trash can, and that's where that belongs.
Yeah.
Just like,
yeah. We'll just take the incinerator from Toy Story 3 and then just put the cellulite there.
Well, that really raises the big question for me, is that they have other films in their catalog that they do celebrate and they do cherish, that also have some problematic stuff. I mean, to me, the most prevalent example I could think of is Dumbo, which they just made a live action movie off of, but they used the opportunity to do live action Dumbo to kind of revise and recontextualize, I guess, the whole story. But at the end of the day, there were the crows in the original Dumbo. There was a literal song where there are slaves like singing like about how much they love being slaves. So there's tough stuff throughout all of Disney's filmography. And I mean, I don't think bringing back Song of the South would be the right decision, but I think on top of that, they should start looking at all of their films, including like the Aristocats and all of them, and just put like warnings in front of them and really show the audience that what they were doing in the past was not okay.
Yeah, right now they're just putting like one line at the bottom of the descriptions of those files in Disney Plus, and I don't think that's enough. I think there should be more to it than that.
And for everyone who kind of like decries that as like PC culture or censorship online, there's nothing wrong with learning about and presenting a film in a historical context and presenting that context to viewers. I mean, you would learn about all of this stuff that we talked about in like a film history class. So why not present that to a casual viewer at home as well?
Yeah, we watched Birth of a Nation in my college history class, and there was no moment where my professor was like, this is a good story. Like, it was very much like, this is a very, very racist film, but it's a part of history, and that's why we're talking about it. Like, real quickly on Splash Mountain, before we move on from that, I just want to point out, like, there's no, like, argument for Splash Mountain that you're preserving anything with it, too, because the ride is it basically is like a Frankenstein of a ride to begin with. It was Eisner wanted a thrill ride. They needed something to do with the pieces from America Sings. So they just shoved those into the ride. It's named Splash Mountain to promote the Tom Hanks, like Daryl Hannah mermaid movie. That's not even like relevant at all anymore. And they're like, let's do something with Zippity Doo Dah. So like, it's not like this ride has some historical context that needs to be preserved. Like, yeah, toss the whole thing out. Like Kia said, just bring us this awesome Tiana themed splash ride. New Orleans Square is right there. Why would you not already celebrate the movie that's already set in New Orleans? And give us a Tiana's Place restaurant while we're at it too, so that we can like enjoy the food that she cooked in the movie and make it like, take that soup restaurant right across the like right next to Rivers of America. Keep selling that soup and have it be Tiana's Place.
Yeah, let's have brunch with Tiana. I want that.
Yes,
Yeah.
We have that already.
Period. I just miss brunch and friends and the outside world and the before time.
Yeah.
But moving on, let's keep things in the realm of theme parks for a moment. This time, all about everyone's favorite Italian man, Mario. So Universal Studios Japan announced this week that their planned Super Nintendo World coming to their theme park in Osaka is unfortunately going to be delayed. It was originally set to open in July, but officials say this decision is to limit the number of guests coming into the park, and not because of a delay in construction or any sort of sinister princess-based kidnappings, contrary to popular belief. So I'm curious, this has been in the works for a while. There's been a lot of those like aerial shots of it that leaked. They had a trailer come out showcasing the park, and it looks great. Like, they go hard in the paint when it comes to themed entertainment like this. But would a new park opening like this, or the upcoming Avengers Academy coming to Disney California Adventure, be enough to get you out of your house and into a theme park? Or is it still entirely too soon? I see those wheels turning, Markia. I need to, what are you thinking?
Oh, it's still too soon. It's still way too soon. Everything's just kind of starting to get shut back down. We didn't even like completely open up yet. And then like the theme park, I'm glad they're delaying it, because it would be such a tough choice not to go. I mean, think about it. I just want the running bit of you show up for Princess Peach's, like photo op, and they're like, oh, your princess is in another part of the park. Just
is
for
there,
that
is there
bit,
an actual photo op you can get, or is that the like waiting for Godot of it all?
Right? I would hope that they like, she doesn't actually exist. They just have her keeping on going around, or they like plant photos online where it's like, here she is with a smiling family. Like, okay, then I'll have to go again. And that's how they get you coming back.
Yeah, she's gonna be like Bigfoot, kind of like always blurry, out of focus. You can never quite catch her in the open.
She's just walking like this with a little Princess Peach watch that you see.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally. When things have calmed down, when we have a vaccine, would be nice before we, do the whole theme park thing again. But I understand. I understand that people want to get their Super Mario on. I want for Super Nintendo Land to be like a really big success, because eventually they'll get Zelda in there, and then that's when I'm there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. But Riley, Robert, what do you think? Is like the opening of a place like Avengers Campus, Avengers Academy, or Super Mario World, Super Nintendo World, is that enough to get you to go back to a place like a theme park right now?
Well, I remember when they were promoting, like, I think even Nerdist, we were covering the Avengers Campus, like, here's all your things you'll find in July. And I remember reading going, will we? Because I didn't think that was going to be happening. And the thing is, I don't think it's enough for me right now. And the nice thing about theme parks is that, especially ones as big as Universal or Disney, is they're still going to be there in a year. And like, I have an AP for Disney, and I don't plan on renewing it, and I don't plan on going back to Disney until 2021 at least. So for me, it's like, I guess like they're going to open eventually, and I'm glad for people who are willing to brave it and go, as long as they can wear a mask and be protective and don't come back and get us all sick. But I'll be happy. I didn't make it to Galaxy's Edge until September. I can wait until 2021 to make it to see Avengers Campus and all. I mean, I want to go so badly. That Spider-Man ride looks amazing, but I can wait. I'll be okay. And maybe by the time I go, they'll have worked out whatever weird like appointment system you have to go on the ride, like with Rise of Resistance. Like, maybe by the time we go, you don't have to get up at 6 a.m. and wait in line outside the park to get in to do it.
Somehow I think it'll be just as convoluted as always, even in 2021.
Probably.
And Star Pilot 6 in the chat says, yeah, put things on hold until the world's a little less of a trash fire.
Yeah.
Because it's just been a weird year. And speaking of that, 2020 has also had a very weird box office, especially when the year's said and done. It's going to be a fascinating year in film history. Now, this past weekend, Followed was number one at the box office with $77,000. And on Nerdist.com, Rosie Knight wrote up some of the strangest titles that have reigned supreme at the box office this year due to the fact that most theaters are closed, save for things like drive-in theaters. Now, most movies like these are smaller genre films that were given a chance to shine without the usual competition of big budget summer blockbusters. For example, you have a movie called Unsubscribe, which topped the US box office on June 10th. It is a 29-minute horror movie shot entirely through Zoom. And the filmmakers, also very clever, they rented out an entire theater to ensure that it would be the number one box office hit. So I like this. They scammed the system, got themselves a number one box office hit with a movie they made in quarantine, but this is an indication that our current money projection should just be ditched in favor of a more accurate tickets sold metric versus like screens or like overall box office. What do you guys think? Robert, what about you?
Yeah, I personally find it, well, for one, I find something like they did for Unsubscribe hilarious. I think that's great. And I think that's, smart marketing. But I think, when you look at the list of these movies, I mean, you're talking about movies like Swallow, which I saw on VOD, The Wretched. I've been actually going to the drive-in theaters pretty much every weekend for the past like 3 weekends. And a lot of these movies you see playing there regularly, like throughout, like The Wretched, Betty, like those are constantly playing at drive-ins as they just like reopened back up. So they've been holding down the drive-in territory. And I know Swallow only had like one drive-in theater that it played in Florida, and it made it to its number one spot. So again, I think it's just fascinating the ways you kind of have to look at movies, the way we're going to have to kind of watch movies from now on. I have been a personal champion of drive-ins just for the simple fact of, to me, it feels like the perfect medium between social distancing and getting that big screen experience. And it's very personal. You could just chill inside of your car. So it's interesting to me. I actually do enjoy a movie like Swallow becoming number one because it is an interesting indie movie. I enjoy seeing movies like Betty, The Wretched, and even the older movies that I'm sure we're going to talk about in a second, getting to number one too, because it just offers a different brand of cinema outside of the traditional big budget stuff. I like seeing indie movies get to number one.
Exactly. It's always great to see these movies, especially the ones that are put out by like IFC Films, for example, get their day in the limelight, because oftentimes they go overlooked when you have this like shinier blockbuster fare. And as you mentioned, though, some older movies that are playing in kind of repertory screenings at drive-ins, like Jurassic Park, managed to come to number one at the box office this year. Like that's 1993 mega hit Jurassic Park managed to be number one at the box office in 2020. Thanks mostly to drive-in theaters, which is just wild. But I'm really enjoying this resurgence of drive-in theaters overall because, as you said, it's a great blend of you can still feel safe while still seeing a movie on the big screen, and you can bring your own snacks and not feel guilty about it. So are you more inclined to seek out a drive-in as opposed to a real theater, even as they start to reopen, maybe at the end of this month? AMC said today they're going to start reopening at the end of July. And what do you hope to see from drive-ins as we move forward? Robert, Markia?
Yeah, well, as far as AMC, I don't know her. She wasn't going to, that whole our guests don't have to wear mask things. That kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. So they're gonna have to come back. They're gonna have to come back from that for me. As far as drive-in theaters, though, yes. In fact, I until this moment with Robert like being impassioned about like drive-in theaters, I hadn't really even put that on my radar. I guess I'm just so VOD right now with just like everything like, in these four walls kind of a thing. But wow, just imagine that like Jurassic Park while you're in a car.
Yeah.
And then you have, because hey, those practical effects hold up. Jurassic Park holds up to this day. Come for me, I will say Jurassic Park holds up to this day. So that would be like a whole other experience. If anything, I would wonder if there would be a way to release other films that would really bring that to you, you being in a car, you being in an enclosed space, having to see everything. I would want them to go down that alley with it.
Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh my God.
On a drive-in screen. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
We also have Jay Markwith in the chat asking, do you think Tenet will be good in a drive-in too?
Yeah.
Personally, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, if Christopher Nolan doesn't get his act together, I'm going to personally sue this guy for putting everybody at risk to get back into theaters, because I think there are different ways you could release Tenet. I think you could either delay it and get people to watch it in the full IMAX that Nolan wants to watch it in, or again, drive-in theaters. You're literally inside of your car and the audio is crystal clear. Like, I know, like, when I went to drive-ins when I was young, I kind of didn't like it because I thought the audio was kind of weird. It comes through the radio. But now the technology is so good. It comes through crystal clear. You get the big screen experience. And if Tenet wants to be seen on the IMAX screen, the drive-in screen is literally bigger than the IMAX. So I don't know what better you could ask for.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where my experience is different than yours, because I went to the drive-in this past weekend. I was one of the people who contributed to Jurassic Park's funding, our box office breakthrough, because I went and saw a double feature of Jaws and Jurassic Park, which was fantastic. That's like the most summer movie feeling you could have going to a drive-in. But the one that I went to was way more outdated, and so we still had the like speaker that you have to sit inside your window. And the issue we were having with they had the FM thing where you could turn your radio on, but the problem is everyone's car's headlights turn on when the car's on, so you couldn't have the radio on. You had to use a speaker. So I was glad that I'd already seen Jaws and Jurassic Park before, because the audio was so hard to understand. So I would be more afraid to go see a new movie in a drive-in that I hadn't seen before, because I'd be too worried about missing something. Because even having seen Jaws, I felt like a lot of the best like lines in the movie got like ruined by the garbled speaker.
That's why you need to bring a laptop playing the movie as a backup, just in case you can have the audio playing.
Yeah, I think next time I would just bring a radio with an FM and like have like a boombox or something sitting on the dashboard with the FM. Yeah.
Well, let's move on from box office numbers to pizza boxes and talk about some interesting food news. So Pizza Hut is pushing the limits of what toppings can be considered pizza toppings by partnering with the Japanese ramen company Menya Musashi, and they've made something called the Ramen Pizza. This abomination, or gift from the heavens, depending on your viewpoint, includes thick ramen noodles, tonkotsu pork slices, white sesame, fresh chili, and a half-boiled egg in the middle. Now, regardless of what you think about it, this pizza combo is only available in Taiwan for now. But I have to know, what do you think of this pizza, the Ramen Pizza? Would you order it if it were available? Robert?
I mean, that's a little tough. I mean, listen, I am an adamant vocal defender of pineapple on pizza. I love pineapple on pizza. I know it's controversial. Look at the panel. Look how things just changed.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, Marquia, that breaks my heart. I love pineapple.
God, Robert, you were a cool person until this moment.
Listen, I don't know what it is. I like sweet. I like savory. You know, the ramen though, that's a little that's a little strange. That's a little funny. I guess it just really depends on how good the ramen is. So if it's good ramen,
maybe you didn't hear him. It's tonkatsu. That's one of the best ramens, but you get it in a pizza form, Robert. A pizza form. It's good.
I don't know how I feel about it. I like those thick pieces of a pork that they put on top. That will probably be the appetizing part. But I'm down to try some ramen pizza. I have open taste buds. I'm down to try that for sure.
Yeah, I would certainly try it, but I do raise my eyebrow because part of the joy of ramen is the rich broth in which it's served. So I feel like you're losing an essential part of this experience and thereby cheapening two great tastes that taste great together. I don't know. Marquia, what do you think?
I think that if you reduce the sauce enough to where it's just like more of a saucy sauce, like you would get with pizza, you would get that tonkatsu ramen broth, but with it, like I just said, I'm salivating right now just thinking about this. It's like because it's so fun. It's so fun. It's so fresh, and like I already said before, quarantine hits different. I want this ramen pizza. I mean, that just you get that crispy bread underneath. With that on top, it's like, do I use chopsticks? Do I use my hands? You use both of them. I would totally give this a try.
We have Bruce Paulson in the chat saying, I've had spaghetti on pizza before, so why not? Which is the kind of nihilistic attitude that I can respect. What's the weirdest topping you've had on pizza? For me, I tried like curry pizza when I was in Japan. I found the only time I've ever been to a Shakey's Pizza Parlor was in a strip mall in Kyoto, and I had curry pizza, which was fine. It wasn't life changing, but I wasn't expecting it to be. What's the weirdest topping that you've had on pizza, Riley?
Probably pickles. Because so you know how like just been the big, and I'm 100% for the hot chicken trend, like especially in LA, there's hot chicken everywhere. I love hot chicken, it's great, and there's a lot of places that have been doing a hot chicken pizza, and they've been putting like pickles on it, and once in a while you get like one or two, but I've been to some places where suddenly it's almost like a pickle pizza, and it's that. I know that of all the things we've named, pickles don't seem like the weirdest ingredient, but sticking them on a pizza is a very strange. It's good, but it's not what you expect at all.
Yeah, definitely not what I was expecting you to say. But I guess that's the point of the question. Robert, Marquia, do you have a particularly weird pizza topping you've tried?
Sure, pineapple.
Oof, that's a shot. I love pineapple on pizza, but I'm gonna piggyback off of the pickles. I've actually seen pastrami pizza that is pastrami, pickles, and mustard.
Yeah, that sounds great. That'd be
good. Yeah,
yeah.
It's out there for sure. I mean, I'm a big pastrami fan, so you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah,
so.
Pastrami is always fantastic. And I will say this before we move on to our next segment. In the words of my dearly departed friend, comedy writer Brian Agler, hot fruit is trash. I don't have a problem with pineapple on pizza, but I feel like his words needed to be out there. Anyway, speaking of eyebrow-raising pizza news, I have some unfortunately grim news for fans of one Charles Entertainment Cheese. Chuck E. Cheese's parent company, CEC Entertainment Inc., has filed for bankruptcy after losing many locations due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And while this doesn't mean that Charles Entertainment Cheese and his band are calling it quits for good, it does mean the future of the original Real Cool Place to Be a Kid is at stake. So I'm curious, how did this news hit you? Did you have a Chuck E. Cheese birthday party when you were younger? Did you go to one? And where do you see Chuck E. Cheese going from here? Is this a salvageable business model? Riley, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, I grew up as a Showbiz kid, and then Showbiz was bought out by the vastly inferior Chuck E. Cheese, and all the good Showbiz characters were moved into Chuck E. Cheese's and ruined. So I feel like Chuck E. Cheese, you can burn those places down and salt the earth. I got real angry at Chuck E. Cheese for a second there. I mean, Chuck E. Cheese, I think the concept's a little outdated. I think that arcades don't have quite the same appeal as they used to. Like, it's not, I love an arcade, but now you get a significantly better video game system at home than you would at an arcade. So I feel like arcades have shifted into more of an adult drinking beer kind of vibe than it is like kids piling up around machines vibe. So yeah, I think that Chuck E. Cheese had its day. I think not unlike how they bought out rivals like Showbiz and shut them down, I think that their time has come. And I think that, like, it's sad, but yeah, like, we also don't play Plinko all over the place anymore either. Things evolve, and that's just how it happens.
Robert, Marquia, what do you think about these damning words about Mr. Entertainment Cheese?
Well, I was a military kid, so I don't have the same attachment to, a senior Chuck E. Cheese. I don't. I think, I just really think what happened is that they couldn't survive the hit of Munch's Make Believe Band disbanding. Once you didn't, Pasquale went off to do a solo album. Helen Henney was just like, no, screw the music business. And after the animatronics were gone, then what did you have left, with Chuck E. Cheese? So they really didn't bounce back from that. And it's a shame. But like Riley was saying, things evolve. So we just have to let this one go.
I think that they should evolve the Chuck E. Cheese concept, partner with Warner Brothers or whoever holds the license, and make it a full-on Five Nights at Freddy's kind of like horror maze experience. Like, kids are already playing this scary game. Why not lean into it and that way embrace your oblivion?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to just lean into it. I mean, I've always found the animatronic rat or mouse or whatever he is, I've always found him kind of creepy. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. But I never really went to Chuck E. Cheese for the characters. I always just went for that greasy Sullivan pizza. I mean, there's nothing I looked forward to than sticking my entire pile of napkins on top of it before I, start eating my slice. So that's really sad. Like you said, like Riley made it like the perfect point. It's like most of the arcades now are like the Dave and Buster's, right? Like it's for adults. It's beers and the after hours thing. Maybe there's a way that Dave and Buster's comes in and is like, hey, let's make a kid friendly Dave and Buster's, and maybe I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe taking away the characters might go a little too far, but I mean, I don't know. I don't really know anybody in this era who's still really passionately hardcore Chuck E. Cheese fans, though. So
yeah, I'd probably back away slowly if I met that person and ask, what are you doing? There's so many other places. Also, I just got to call out Mike Jackson in the chat saying it's all about Discovery Zone, which 100% DZ or die.
Wasn't Chuck E. Cheese doing some weird thing at the beginning of the COVID outbreak where they were like putting fake pizza places up on like on Postmates and stuff?
What they did is on food delivery apps, they listed themselves as Pasquale's Pizza and Wings.
Yeah.
And they were selling Chuck E. Cheese pizza under that because no one was purchasing Chuck E. Cheese pizza because we live in 2020 and you don't have to settle for having Chuck E. Cheese pizza foisted upon you at your door.
Yeah.
You can get anything else.
Yeah, but like Joanna the Scammer is strong.
Yes, it
That's
is
some boss moves there.
Right? That's like Charles Entertainment Cheese running some like food delivery app psyops on us. That is just next level.
By the way, that goes back to the drive-in theater thing. One huge advantage to the drive-in theater is you can bring in whatever food you want to bring in from outside, so you're not like obligated to buy. So it's like Chuck E. Cheese's biggest downfall was being married to that awful pizza. Like if you could have a Chuck E. Cheese party but bring in the food you want to have and there's still a band playing and stuff like that, you'd probably do a lot better.
Well, that brings us to our next segment of something that will make it even easier to bring one of your favorite snacks wherever you go, or worse, depending on how you look at it. 2020 is a weird year, guys. And Stouffer's has announced plans to make hot and creamy mac and cheese dispensers. No, an algorithm did not write that. I'm not having a stroke, I hope. I'm talking about mac and cheese on tap, and this is not a joke. In a tweet last week, Stouffer's announced, it's very real. We created a Mac on Tap dispenser delivering mac and cheese straight from the tap. Coming soon, ... So, first of all, is this real? And second of all, would you use it? Robert, let's start with you.
Oh man, listen, as somebody who, whose family is from the South, and we are hardcore believers in the soul food and mac and cheese and, and the intricacies of cuisine. There's no way I could see myself eating mac and cheese on tap. I mean, it sounds like a great idea. I think that's a great idea for like an office. Like if you're in an office and everybody just needs something warm to keep their belly warm during lunch. Absolutely. But I wouldn't personally partake. I'm not even the biggest fan of like boxed macaroni and cheese to begin with. But yeah, coming out of a tap, not for me, Chief.
Yeah. How can I give this entire office diarrhea as fast as possible? I know, a mac and cheese pump. I'll just get this pasta from a spigot. Problem solved. I don't know, Riley. Would you dare to brave the mac and cheese dispenser?
Hey, you know what? Like the number one thing about mac and cheese, there's always too much of it. Like it's never a situation where it's like, boy, I wish I had some more mac and cheese lying around. And then the Stouffer's mac and cheese, especially, like that is always the saddest choice of a meal if you're going for the Stouffer's mac and cheese. Like if even the individual size plate of Stouffer's mac and cheese is an indication that something has gone terribly wrong in your week. So if now you're taking it and you're giving yourself an entire dispenser to have to work through, that is a cry for help, and you need to call someone who loves you and talk you down from it, because nothing about that sounds good. Like, I mean, it's bad enough when you walk into like a 7-Eleven and you see like a nacho cheese dispenser like that, but at least like nacho cheese, okay, it's a liquid, it comes out of the dispenser and then it's gone. But mac and cheese, you're going to have bits of macaroni hanging around the insides of that dispenser. So you got to have somebody going in there to clean that out on a regular basis, or you're going to have these nightmare eldritch creations of caked up cheese and pasta living forever inside your tap. And I want no part of it.
All I hear is Stouffer's is creating a new category of jobs. Mac and cheese dispenser uncloggers.
Yeah, the pasta scraper.
Exactly. Now we have Ravensburger Master in the chat saying, as a chemist, this idea scares me. And you did just mention those eldritch creatures. So, Markia, what do you think? Does this scare you? Or are you thinking it's about time that mac and cheese gets delivered in a brand new way?
This would definitely be a brand new way, wouldn't it? Oh wow. I'm not going to diss other people's comfort food. I know a number of friends that just like when things are going wrong, the box of mac and cheese is like what helps them bring them back to them. That being said, this is like one of the not the one of the worst ideas I have ever heard of. It's like, oh, all I can think of are things like, what's the price point on this? For instance, how much, like energy wise, how much counter space does it go? I mean, depending on where you live, LA, New York, you only have so much kitchen counter space. You have to, economize that counter space. Is it gonna be the mac and cheese dispenser that wins over the microwave? I mean, is that where we live now? Is quarantine there? So yeah, no, I say stay with the boxes. I thought it was a joke when I saw the tweet. I'm gonna have to unlike that tweet. Give me just a second.
Write a stern letter to Mr. Stouffer and urge him please not to meddle with forces he can't possibly understand. All right, let's leave mac and cheese behind and move on to a different MC and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they say a hero is only as good as its villain, and that is definitely the case in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In fact, Nerdist's definitive ranking of MCU villains ranked from worst to best recently blew up on our website. People were debating it left, right, and center, and we thought now would be the perfect time to hash it out once more about which MCU villains are the best at being bad. So you can read the full list for yourself down at Nerdist.com, but suffice it to say, characters like Thanos, Loki, Eric Killmonger all ranked very highly on this list. So to you, what makes a good MCU villain? Riley, let's start with you.
I mean, I gotta give my love to Hela from Thor Ragnarok. I feel like she kind of got a little bit overshadowed by the presence of Jeff Goldblum, but I mean, look at the antlers and the fierceness to it. I gotta give that to her. But the hero that I think gets unsung and needs a little bit more love, even though he's not nearly as compelling, is not played by like a famous actor or whatever. But I gotta give a little bit of respect to Helmut Zemo from Captain America: Civil War, because up until arguably Thanos in Infinity War, Zemo's the only villain to succeed 100% in his plan. Like, yeah, he goes to jail, but his goal is to break up the Avengers. And what does he do? He causes a fight between Captain America and Iron Man that breaks up the Avengers. So, say what you want. And also, I mean, charisma, the style, the fashion, great. That's all successful. Zemo just keeps his head down and he gets stuff done.
Do you think he's going to wear his iconic purple ski mask in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
I mean, if he doesn't, I will take back everything I just said.
Yes. Also, justice for Paste Pot Pete. Robert, what do you think makes a good MCU villain?
To me, the best villains are the ones that you don't really see coming. The villains are the ones who are, obviously important to the characters, relevant to the characters, but also you can find a connection to them as an audience member. So for me, when I first saw this list and thought of it, one of the first ones that jumped out to me was Eric Killmonger from Black Panther, obviously, because his goal and his motivation is so relatable and so prevalent to everything that the Black experience is. That being said, though, for me, another villain that I take a really personal connection with is Ego, the Living Planet from Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2. I think to me, what makes that villain resonate so hard is that the fact that you're watching this movie largely from the lens of Star-Lord's perspective, and you think he's a good guy. You think he's just reconnecting with his father. You think that, there's something that's a real relationship that could be building, but he stabs him in the back, and you learn that Ego's the one who pretty much almost completely ruined Star-Lord's life from the very beginning. And it just represents a lot of, toxic masculinity. It resembles a lot of bad fathertism, and for, no pun intended, it resembles the what I think the best villains are a bad ego, a terrible ego. So I loved everything about it. I think it was so well written. It was so well performed by Kurt Russell, who's probably one of my favorite villains. Villain performances. So yeah, to me is ego for sure.
Awesome. I like that as well, because I wasn't, I will be honest, I love Kurt Russell, but I was not expecting to say that. And you've made me appreciate his performance in a new way. What about you, Markia? Who reigns supreme on your list of the best baddies?
Well, and keeping in mind that we're just going to set aside the ultimate everybody's best baddies, which, Thanos, Loki, Eric Killmonger. I've gone on record with how much love I have for the villainry that is Eric Killmonger. Yeah. But a villain for me that really sticks out is one that is close to home, someone that is a friend until they're not. And then you don't see it coming until it already happens, and you're just completely, smacked across your head, and you're like, how can I even do this? This person was my friend. So that's why for me, Jeff Bridges in original Iron Man as Obadiah Stane hit so hard. And then think about it. You didn't really have a villain of that caliber and that layer until you start hitting the Captain Americas, like when you get Robert Redford as like Alexander Pierce. And then after that, you start getting more layered villains. So going from the first movie, Obadiah like held that mess as villainry all throughout there. Because think about it, he was like a sleeper cell. He was like a sleeper agent right there next to the Stark family that entire time. And Jeff Bridges plays it so well. And then when he explodes, you're just like, oh, damn. Okay. Yeah, this was festering within him. And you feel that fester. Like the very fact that Iron Man 1, I'm going to specify Iron Man 1 because, we know about 2, but obviously he's not in 2. With Iron Man 1, it's so layered. It hits you. And that is arguably one of the, not saying about Blade and, 98, arguably one of the films that just sticks with you throughout. You can keep on coming back to it, and he is a huge part of that. Without him, I wonder if Iron Man would have hit as hard as it did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to the core of what we're talking about. Like, if you think about those Marvel movies that have kind of forgettable villains or lackluster villains, it really undercuts the rest of it, because there's cool sequences and moments, but like, take like Malekith from Thor: The Dark World, played by the incredible Christopher Eccleston. He's an amazing actor, and like by all accounts, that should be like a fun movie. You have this like, okay, you've like introduced Thor. You're finally getting to like revel and full on in this like full fantasy world. You have like elves and frost giants, and like you have this mysterious substance called the ether, but then he's just so one note, and it's just there, and it just kind of drags everything down into kind of this miasma of forgettability. So what to you, I think, like, what can be the danger associated when you have a villain that doesn't necessarily measure up to these heights like the ones we talked about?
I think it makes the movie forgettable. I think that's what like we're talking about. Like Kia mentioned Iron Man 2, and you've definitely messed up badly if Sam Rockwell is a villain in your movie and he's not at the top of a list of the best villains in the like. Sam Rockwell is amazing in everything, and you had him as Justin Hammer, and yet you also were like, oh yeah, I forgot he was a villain in Iron Man 2. And I think that like, and I'm also on board. I'm actually one of the few people who love the twist in Iron Man 3 of Ben Kingsley and his Mandarin being a fake out. But like at the same time, then like Killian wasn't that exciting of a villain after that, so it wasn't like enough to amp it up. Whereas, yeah, like Loki, like you can keep coming back to Loki because he's just so compelling and so fun. And Marvel has this great history, Marvel Comics, not just the movies, of these villains that could easily be the hero if you told the story a little bit differently. You've got like Daredevil, the TV series, could easily have been called Kingpin and been almost the exact same show, because the villains are as important of a character to the story as the hero is. That's why Infinity War was so interesting, is that a lot of people argue that Thanos was the protagonist of Infinity War because he was written so strongly and such a compelling point of view and had such a like an arc of his own that like you almost, if you wanted to, you could root for him. And I think that's what makes a movie stand out, is when the villain is someone you actually can connect to and like and follow their arc.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why, for me, I think that's why somebody like Ultron didn't necessarily work as well for me, because, you know, when you look at the Avengers movies, I think most people could pretty universally agree that the second one is maybe the weakest one. And I think it all comes down to Ultron because, you know, he has such an interesting kind of story, but there's not really a lot of ways you can relate to him. And he was kind of, you know, as powerful as a villain as Ultron is, he was kind of confined to doing this very kind of very half comedic, half dramatic thing where it didn't really have like a full consistency as in terms of tone and performance. And James Spader does a great job as like his voice, but there's not really a lot to sink your teeth into as compared to somebody like Loki or Thanos. So
yeah, I feel like Ultron, they were trying too hard to make him essentially just like a personification of the worst qualities of Tony Stark. And I think like that's the problem is like what Avengers Ultron was not an Iron Man movie, it was an Avengers movie. And so it's like reason why the first Avengers worked so well is even aside from Loki, the conflict of the Avengers against each other made such a compelling story. But by the time you get to Ultron, it's like, no, you need a villain they can all rally against, not just be like, this is kind of a mirror of one of the characters.
And I will say, I know it does kind of get like maligned as the weakest of the bunch of Avengers movies, but I like have a soft spot in my heart for Age of Ultron just because I love the scope of what they're trying to do. It features some of the best, I think, Avengers moments in there, these like super comic booky moments, and it has all these like weird secret labs and betrayals and sub-villains in a way that I think really adds to the grand total. Also because it's probably just me like nerding out because Ultron is such a classic Avengers villain, and I think giving him James Spader's voice was such an inspired choice that for me it feels underrated. But obviously when you compare it to someone like a Thanos or a Loki, or even a more modern character like Adrian Toomes, Michael Keaton as the Vulture, who I think is another super underrated pick, is this mix of... the reason I like him is because he is the product of the circumstances and events of the previous movies. Like his like livelihood has been impacted by these superheroes running rampant, selling black market merch on the side, and then like he's this working class, ostensibly should be a working class hero, is trying to get his piece of the pie. And also just Michael Keaton. I mean, come on, that scene of him and Peter in the car on the way to prom is just like god tier status.
You know what I like about Toomes and Spider-Man Homecoming in general is that his plan isn't a world-destroying plan. It's just a heist. And like you can have a movie that has really high stakes and really compelling drama without it being a world-threatening story, without it being like a catastrophic apocalypse. It's just Peter trying to stop this robbery of all this equipment.
Yeah, and then along with that, you have this super relatable, like, it's like, oh, that could be my dad. He's just trying to make it work. He's just trying to get his dollar, you know, that kind of a thing. But along with that, at least, well, you know, spoilers, he doesn't die, which is great. Along with that, you have a really great setup for a rogues gallery of Spider-Man with this central character that's going to be able to talk with other people. You know, like the Q of evil. You can have him in there, and I love it when they do that. It's like when we have these super awesome layered villains, don't kill them. I'm saying nothing, but y'all know me when I'm saying that.
Yes, and then there's also the tried and true maxim in comics that unless you're Uncle Ben, no one stays dead. So hopefully, you know, some of these characters that may be dead or banished or otherwise seemingly like they've shuffled off this mortal coil will appear once more, because I think I speak for everyone out there when I say the world needs more Hela and Kate Blanchett in their lives.
Yeah.
And look, she's got to come back at some point. I'm keeping my fingers crossed the Russos will make good on their talk about Secret Wars and how they love that one. I would love an adaptation of the Hickman Secret Wars run. It's basically interdimensional Game of Thrones. You can bring back all these fan favorites, just sprinkle in tons of villains in there. That's what I'd love to see.
It's the only difference between movies and comics with bringing back favorite characters, though, is you have a lot more contracts to deal with and a lot more like having to pay for all the actors to come back. That's like the one thing it's like, which I actually kind of like, because I do like the stakes. I like if someone's dead, I want them to stay dead. I think I want that to have an impact. Like I want that to have weight and some like thrust to it, you know?
Yeah.
I still want there to be a Doom, Deadpool, Dora Milaje, just thing that happens in Wakanda. Let's bring it from the comics onto the big screen one day, maybe.
Yes.
2027. Everybody, that sound good for you?
Black Panther 3, Doom War. Let's make it happen. I am all about that. All right. Now that we have the news out of the way, let's move on to a bit of fun. It's time for some Nerdist News trivia. So we like to connect our trivia here at Nerdist News Talks Back to the barest of threads. Yesterday, for example, was comedic legend Mel Brooks' birthday. Happy birthday, Mel. To commemorate his long history of filmmaking, we're going to put in our Abby Normal brains, be one with the Schwartz, and pump up our sneakers in Mel Brooks Trivia Edition. So let's do this. Does everyone have pen, pencil, crayon, etc.? Let's do this. Okay. So the first is going to be multiple choice. What was the first movie that Mel Brooks directed? A, The Producers, B, Silent Movie, C, Young Frankenstein, or D, History of the World, Part 1?
Can you give me that list again?
Yes, that is A, The Producers, B, Silent Movie, C, Young Frankenstein, or D, History of the World, Part 1.
Ready when you are.
Okay. And present your answers if you have them. Okay, so we have a wide variety of answers here. Unfortunately, Robert and Markia, the answer is A, The Producers. So Riley, that's a tricky one. In my head, they all came out at the exact same year and the exact same day, and they just appeared in my
Comedy
library.
Central. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that was the first Mel Brooks I ever saw. So that, to me, that is the earliest.
Of course. We're going to rewrite history here. All right, moving on to number 2. Again, multiple choice. In Young Frankenstein, which shoulder is Igor's hump on? A, the left shoulder. B, the right shoulder. C, in the middle. Or D, it's always changing. That's A, left shoulder, B, right shoulder, C, in the middle, or D, it's always changing. All right, what do we got, folks? Okay, Riley, Markia, you are correct. D,
Yikes.
It was always changing.
I'm doing terrible so far. Yikes.
No, you were checking your phone when it moved and only saw it on the one side, so it's all good. All right, we have another multiple choice question. This time it's all about Robin Hood Men in Tights. In a surprise cameo, who played King Richard in Robin Hood Men in Tights? A, Sean Connery, B, Mel Brooks, C, Patrick Stewart, or D, Gene Wilder?
Can you repeat the question, please?
I just gave it away.
In a surprise
I didn't see.
cameo.
I know. I think Robert saw it.
Yeah, I might have seen.
In a surprise
got
cameo.
excited.
It's part of strategy. If you saw, good on you.
And I might be wrong. Maybe I
That's
had the
a
wrong
trivia
answer up.
Easter egg. In a surprise cameo, who played King Richard in Robin Hood Men in Tights? A, Sean Connery, B, Mel Brooks, C, Patrick Stewart, or D, Gene Wilder?
Got this one.
Okay,
I'm
let's see
certain
it.
of this answer.
All right, you are all correct. It was, in fact, Patrick Stewart.
Thank you, Riley, for the free point. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
I'm very certain I spelled all of that wrong, but I got it right.
Here's your knife,
I
sword,
put like
whatever.
a W where the E was.
Look, it's
Yeah.
the thought that counts.
There was an extra T.
I freaked out too much as a kid that Picard showed up suddenly at the end of that movie, so that was burned into my brain.
Yes, shared cinematic universe.
Yeah.
It's a holodeck.
The whole movie's in a holodeck. That makes
Yes, that's if you stay after the credits, they reveal that, but people didn't know to do that back then.
Yeah. I think
okay.
that movie has a recipe in the credits. There's one of those movies has like a weird cooking recipe in the credits somewhere, but I can't remember which one it is.
Let's just bring back more of that. I don't need elaborately animated end credit scenes. Just give me that.
Exactly.
All right. Number 4. True or false? Mel Brooks has gone on record and said there will never be a History of the World Part 2. True or false? Mel Brooks has said there will never be a History of the World Part 2. All right. You get your answers? Please present them.
I meant A, but it's true. It's true.
Okay. That means a truth. That is correct. It is true. Mel Brooks has said there might be a part 4, but never a part 2. So classic Mel Brooks right there. All right, moving on. Number 5, fill in the blank. In Spaceballs, Dark Helmet confesses he is Lone Star's father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate, which makes them blank, according to Dark Helmet. It makes them blank. In Spaceballs, Dark Helmet confesses he is Lone Star's father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate, which makes them blank. All right. Do we have our answers locked in?
Sure. I gotta rewatch that movie.
Yeah. All right. Show us the Ancestry.com results, folks. Oh, no. Okay. So, Riley, the answer is absolutely nothing. Markia, I will give you that point. Robert, they are not cousins, unfortunately.
Yikes.
Unless you have seen some lore that I have not.
I absolutely have not. I haven't seen Spaceballs in years, so.
Yeah, yes, of course. All right, let's move on to number 6. Multiple choice again. Which film is Mel Brooks' highest grossing movie? I like this one. All right. A, Young Frankenstein. B, Blazing Saddles. C, The Producers. Or D, Robin Hood Men in Tights. Which is Mel Brooks' highest grossing movie? A, Young Frankenstein. B, Blazing Saddles. C, The Producers. Or D, Robin Hood Men in Tights.
I'm trying to reuse the paper by writing on the back of old paper.
Yeah, really.
I appreciate your commitment to sustainable trivia.
I should get an eraser board or something.
All right, let's see your answers, folks. All right, the answer is in fact B, Blazing Saddles.
Yes. Darn it.
Markia,
because I was thinking there's so many remakes, right? And it's like there's a musical. I'm like, it has to be The Producers.
I would that would have been my guess as well.
I was trying to decide if I thought that remakes would count as the other one's grosses or if it would be its own separate grosses. So,
although I love that it's Blazing Saddles, though. Yeah. I love that.
Yes. Yeah.
I wanted it to be the right answer, so I was glad that it was.
Well, let's keep this Blazing Saddles train moving with the next question. Fill in the blank. In the film Blazing Saddles, the government is trying to build a railroad through the town of blank. I'll give you a hint. It is 2 words. In the film Blazing Saddles, the government is trying to build a railroad through the town of blank.
Oh, no.
There is a 0% chance I would have gotten this for the record.
No, I don't know here.
I only know half of it. Now I gotta guess the rest.
I'll give you folks another hint. It is alliterative.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's not that one then. All right.
All right.
Oh.
Let's see the answers, everyone. Markia, you nailed it. It is Rock Ridge. I desperately wish it was Cowtown.
I knew the ridge. But it was like Break Ridge, Stone Ridge.
Yeah. I will say Cowtown is if they ever remake it, I'm going to lobby that they call it Cowtown instead, because you can always improve upon perfection, as they say.
Of course.
All right. We got another true and false question coming up next. Speaking of perfection, Mel Brooks has yet to EGOT, true or false? EGOT being Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award winning. Mel Brooks has yet to achieve the EGOT, true or false?
That's a good one.
All right, let's see your answers, everyone. That is correct. It is, wait, is it false? Oh, yes, he has yet. I had to reread the wording of it. It is false. Mel Brooks does, in fact, have an EGOT. He got an Oscar, a Grammy, and a Tony for The Producers, and an Emmy for his guest starring appearance on Mad About You. So Thank you, Paul Reiser, for enabling this feat of award winning. All right, let's move on to number 9. Multiple choice. In the film High Anxiety, the main character, Dr. Thorndyke, suffers from extreme acrophobia, which is a fear of what? A, doctors, B, flowers, C, spiders, or D, heights? In the film High Anxiety, the main character, Dr. Thorndyke, has extreme acrophobia, which is a fear of A, doctors, B, flowers, C, spiders, or D, heights. All right, what do we got, folks?
If I did the wrong thing there, whatever B is.
Okay, unfortunately, that's still wrong. The answer is D, heights.
Okay.
Wow.
I think
I have
they
not
laid a
seen that
clue-
movie.
They laid a clue in the title with high.
Oh.
It's his Hitchcock parody film.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, and our final question for now. True or false? Mel Brooks's handprint on the Hollywood Walk of Fame has 11 fingers. True or false? 11 fingers on Mel Brooks's handprint on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yikes, my marker's dying on me here.
Right?
There we go.
I can only use this Sharpie when I move.
All right.
All right, let's see the answers, folks. That is correct. True, there are 11 fingers on his handprint on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. All right, I'm going to have my high-tech computer tabulate everyone's scores. Okay. Beep, boop, bop, beep. I'm being told the results are being tabulated now. Okay. Yeah, no, I asked them that. Okay. Am I still stalling for time? No? We can move on? Okay, great. So, the winner of our Mel Brooks Trivia Showdown is Riley. Congratulations, Riley.
Yay!
Your check is in the mail.
Awesome.
Folks, thank you all for playing. And now it's time for our 30-second soapbox. This is your chance to get whatever's been on your chest off your chest. You can talk about anything at all that you want to. Riley, since you won, you were first up. So what do you have for us?
Okay, I think that if you want to head over to Nerdist.com and check out my awesome interview, I have 2 great interviews on the site right now you can check out. Not only did I interview 3 of the doctors from Doctor Who last week, which was like one of the best things ever happened in my career, but just today we actually posted an interview that I did the week before with Leslie Odom Jr. and Philippa Sue and talking about Hamilton coming up. But it was one of the better interviews I've been privileged to be part of, because we talked a little bit about how the show would translate like to the screen, but then they both just gave me really amazing and interesting answers when I talked to them about the legacy of the show and how it relates to like the current like amplification of Black voices and minority voices and the pushback against a lot of the problems that we're having culturally. And it was just such an interesting interview, and it was just so great to get to sit back and listen to them both talk about it. And so I was so happy with what they gave me that I basically was able just to kind of take what they put and put it out there. And it's a great interview. So that sounds like I'm praising myself. I did a great interview. They gave me great answers. And so it was it's not the kind of thing that I typically write for Nerdist. Normally I tend to cover very just like fun. Today I wrote about 2 guys listening to Jolene for the first time. So it's a very different piece that I'm used to doing, but I was so excited to be part of it. So I hope people get to read and enjoy it.
Fantastic. And if anyone hasn't seen that Jolene video, by the way, highly recommend, in addition to Riley's excellent interviews, because that video just filled me with joy, people experiencing Jolene for the very first time. But enough about me. Let's move on. Markia, this is your 30-second soapbox. What do you got for us?
Sure. If you want to try something different, you can try Something Scary. We do animated horror episodes. We drop that on YouTube at youtube.com/snarled. That is every Tuesday. We have a new episode. And then also, if you are a podcast person, I do narrate horror stories, user submitted horror stories that you can check wherever you listen to your podcasts. Something Scary. Along with that, Black Lives Matter always. Some foundations that you can look at if you aren't familiar with them is Black Visions Collective. They're based out of Minnesota. Obviously, Black Lives Matter. Loveland Foundation, which is trying to get Black females therapy, and also Black in Pink, which helps with the process of incarcerated queer people and people of color that just don't have anybody to advocate for them. So yeah, those are some foundations to go ahead and take a look at.
Thank you so much for amplifying those organizations, Markia. Thank you. And Robert, now it's your turn for the 30-second soapbox. What do you have for us?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll just shout out my podcast, The Meaning of Podcast. I'm very proud of it. A couple weeks ago, we had Josh Trank on, director of Fantastic Four, and he spoke with us. Most recently, we did an episode on Black superheroes featuring my good buddy Winston A. Marshall. So we talked about all kinds of Black superheroes, from Static Shock to Black Panther to Storm. So it's a really great episode, and I highly recommend that you check it out on our First Cut YouTube channel and anywhere you find podcasts at The Meaning of Podcast. And also, one more shout out to Geeks of Color. I've helped Geeks of Color out with some articles before in the past and some interviews, and they're a really great organization. They literally are fully dedicated to amplifying Black journalists, people of color journalists, women of color, and all across the board. It's overall great. They have a great Twitter account. They have a great website, geeksofcolor.co. So be sure to check that out as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for joining me today. Riley, Robert, Markia. It was so much fun talking to you all about this stuff. That mac and cheese pump is going to haunt my dreams. But on a more serious note for a moment, tagging on a bit to what Markia mentioned, if you are interested in learning more about anti-racism and educating yourself about how to get involved in the ongoing fight against systemic racism, we have a number of articles and information about those subjects on Nerdist.com. Obviously, do your own research, seek it out where you can, but we've tried to curate a selection of stuff to make it accessible, because it is important to not just consume media, but to understand the context in which it's presented and just educate yourself, so that way you can be a more responsible global citizen and a better human. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And also be sure to check out tomorrow's Nerdist News, because we're going to be exploring some very interesting stuff on there. Going to be talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or the Falcon and Bucky show, as we insist on calling it. Whether or not it's going to come to Disney Plus in August, it's anybody's bet. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, have a great day, and we'll see you back here next Monday for an all-new episode of Nerdist News Talks Back at 2 p.m. live Pacific time on Nerdist and Geek and Sundry's YouTube channels and Geek and Sundry's Twitch. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.